In this 8-video tutorial series, I'm going to be showing you how to make a fursuit head from start to finish through a series of time-lapse videos. If you're interested in seeing how a fursuit head is made, please watch all 8 pieces from start to finish to not miss a single part of how to make a fursuit. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy it. I start by sewing a lycra balaclava and adding a dome of 1/2 inch thick foam over the outside. I then mark on where the eyes and mouth would go and begin carving foam for the piece. I'll measure out how to create the different pieces with various sized chunks of foam, and then basically just draw on and start cutting as I feel necessary. I always start with the muzzle, which may require some extra adjustment from the original size block of foam that I use. All of the pieces are fixed together with hot glue and cut with either a pair of scissors or a box cutter. Here you see me carving out the inside of the mouth and readying it for attachment to the face. All pieces must be firmly held down before the glue dries. Next, I work on the bridge of the nose, which will go between the eyes. No pieces have to be perfect, as they will be cut and adjusted and added to throughout the entire process. I constantly reshape through carving and adding on to all the pieces that I've already attached to the fursuit head. This ensures that the final result is as good as I'd like it to be. I keep reference pictures on hand at all times to make sure they all work out perfectly. It must resemble the chosen animal. Next, I draw out and carve out a nose, which will attach onto the front of the muzzle temporarily during the making of the fursuit head in order to visualize where it will go. Without a nose, it's difficult to imagine the size and shape of the muzzle in comparison to the rest of the face. Next, I measure out and cut a lower jaw. I use various sizes of foam through the entire making of this piece. I believe the one I'm using currently is approximately 1.5 inches thick. No, actually I think it's more like 1 inch. I trim the pieces to fit, not being too precise about how it is, as it will be edited through the entire piece. I always throw away my foam shavings as I go to avoid a large clear up later on and to avoid it all getting in the way. Next, I measure out and cut cheek pieces. These are vital to do at an early stage, as you know how big the muzzle needs to be and how big the eyebrows need to be. I do this in 3 stages. First, I make one large panel of cheek, which will go onto the head first. Afterwards it'll be a slightly smaller piece, and after that a very small piece, just to make sure it can all be cut and blend into a nice smooth curve without any flat edges. Again, reference images are vital. Here's the second piece being drafted and cut out. It doesn't have to be too accurate, as, again, I will be cutting and adding to the foam as I go. I like to pre-carve the layers before I glue on a new one ever so slightly, just so I know where is the best place to locate them. As you see, I just noticed an issue with the bridge of the nose and trimmed that as I went, which is largely the process of fursuit building. You can't just make a piece and then move on. It's a lot of trial and error and trying to attach different pieces at different times and just basically trying to make it as good as you possibly can. which can only be done over time and by setting the piece aside for maybe a day, coming back to look at it and seeing what it looks like then. Second-hand opinions and looking at the fursuit head through a mirror is always, vital elements of carving the right size and shape fursuit head. You'll need lots of hot glue for this project. I used somewhere between 5 and 10 sticks for each fursuit head. They're all 30 centimeters long and 10 millimeters wide. Next, I carve the eyebrows. At the moment, it's just a very basic shape, which, again, I will add to as I go. And I do this by carving one block out of a 2-inch block and then cutting it in half so they're exactly symmetrical on each side. This is purely because I have a lot of this thickness of foam available, and as I'm not using straight 2-inch blocks for the cheeks now, and I'm carving 1-inch blocks down, basically I just need to find somewhere to use it, and eyebrows is a very good place to do that. It's not quite thick enough for the muzzle. I like to use around about 4-inch thick foam for that. It's good to buy scraps and offcuts because they're a lot cheaper. As you can see, I'm beginning to carve down the eyebrows, but I can even see from this video now that I think they're too shallow for the fursuit head that I'm going for, especially for the toony look. Now I decide to add bits on using inch thick foam. I don't recommend using leftovers and offcuts if you can help it, but at the same time, often you'll have pieces left which aren't quite big enough for what you want, and it's good to just piece them together on bits like the eyebrows and over the top of the head, because you'll be, drastically carving into them anyway. Do a little bit more fine shaping on the cheeks and muzzle, which is essential throughout the entire process. Here I'm gluing on additions to the eyebrows, which will be drastically carved down afterwards to get the desired shape. However, I don't want to use smaller pieces, so using bigger pieces and carving into them is a way to get a much neater finish. Now I begin carving into the eyebrow pieces to blend them smoothly into the head and make sure they're the right shape around the eyes for the expression I'm going for. This fursuit is going to be very happy and content without being, too excited or too calm looking, basically. I carve around the eye sockets to shape them into the head a lot more accurately to what I want. And again, more carving on the cheeks. It's a constant process that you can't just do once and then leave it. Your cuts don't have to be perfect and smooth, but make sure it's as smooth as possible so that none of the ridges show up when you add fur. And sorry, I do have a bit of a cold today. Next I'll be carving small portions that will go on the cheeks to enhance the expression and give the face a sort of chunkier, toonier look. These small pieces will just bridge together the cheek and the muzzle, but will also act as little smiley points to enhance the expression. The little green triangles I'm drawing on will be small bits of felt or fleece that I'll add to the sides of the mouth to give it a smiley look, without having to, carve loads of the foam away to try and make that happen. I just prefer doing it this way. And now I cut out the areas where these little smiley bits will go. You need to add a lot of depth there for the shapes to really stand out and look as strong as you'd like them to look. I did realise at this point that I cut too much away, and I'm just adding a bit more on. Again, it's just an ongoing process with fursuit building. You need to just keep adding and taking away to make it look as good as you want it to look. I trim pieces away to blend these bits in smoothly. Next I draft a pattern for the ears, which, by the way, is just about my least favourite part. You'll see at this point that I do struggle, and I make, I think, 2 or 3 attempts, one of which was cut from the video, because I just felt like you didn't need to see so many failed ear attempts. Often I'll draft them out of paper first, and pin them on and cut them up as I go, just to get the desired shape without wasting a lot of foam. Here I'm using standard A3 printer paper. This is actually a camping mat made of dense, closed-cell foam. I quite like using these for ears because it's quite sturdy, and it's nice and thin, so there's not a huge amount of carving involved. You can always add to it though. Often I'll use 2 layers of this if I do use it, because I don't think one is strong enough to support the weight of the ear without it drooping once you add fur. I pin on both ears, to check the fit and rotate the head, look at it from all angles. Sometimes I'll leave the head for a day and then come back and look at it again. However, I'm not at all happy with these ears, as you'll see. Gotta be honest, I think it looks more like a kangaroo. I tried fixing the ears by adding blocks of foam into the base, just to tilt them forwards a little bit more. That's a problem I often find with ears, that they end up leaning backwards too much for the character that I'm going for. However, now, as you see, I've removed the ears outside of the video. This will be where I've cut one of the actual attempts. For my next attempt, I use 1/2 inch foam again. It's a little bit lighter than the one I had before because I've got a lot of this stuff lying around. This was a sort of experiment to try a different style that I liked. I cut out the basic shape of the ear that I like, and then cut out a small, make a slit in the middle at the base, at the back of the ear, which I then glue a small triangle into to open the base out. This gives a flared base which goes up into a straighter, pointier top, which I think creates a really nice shape for the ear. After making the first one, I trace it onto more foam to make a second one. With this style, I couldn't make a paper pattern, as you wouldn't be able to add the small, triangular dart, I suppose, except it's not a dart, it's like the opposite of a dart. Sorry, I don't have a great sewing knowledge. And I do eat a lot of sweets in this video, I do apologise for that. Again, I pin the ears on to see what I think. Bits will be removed as I go. I fine-tune the shape of the ears and decide that eventually I feel that the front of the ear, as you'll see now, isn't curved enough, so I just cut a piece, glue it on, see what that looks like. Which, after pinning down, I am happy with, so I create another piece for the other side and do that one too. I found these ears particularly tricky due to their size and angle. I did really like the new ear style that I attempted, and I certainly continue to keep doing this. I then glue on the ears around the pins. I leave the pins in while the glue dries. Make sure you don't go too close to the pins with the glue, because else you will coat them in hot glue. Eventually I'll remove the pins and then glue where the pins were. Sometimes it'll take multiple attempts to get the ears to glue down, because if you let go of them before the glue is fully dry, they'll just unpop the seams, basically. Lots more carving into the face, smoothing out, fine-tuning details, etc. This base is nearly ready for completion. You'll also notice at the back of the dome, the basic dome that goes over the head, there is a piece of fleece glued on. That is basically to reinforce the back of the head, because sometimes you'll pull it on and it'll rip. That has happened to me before. So now I carve out the eyes and the mouth. The eyes were templates I made prior to the video. This is cut out obviously for vision and ventilation. Thank you for watching this installment of the video, and I hope you check out my next one.